All right, let's begin. The title comes from not only the study I wanted to do, but I was thinking about the news networks here in the Kansas City area. They always jockey to who has the most accurate weather forecast, right? I don't know whether you can believe what they say, when somebody says we have the most accurate. Uh, yeah, I don't know. But I do know that Jesus is highly accurate in his predictions. And so we're going to look at that tonight. Zechariah chapter 12 and beginning in verse 1. We haven't done any studies in Zechariah, and yet Zechariah, very much like Daniel, is a backbone book about prophecy, the last few chapters in particular. Chapter 12 and verse 1. The burden of the word of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens. Now let's stop there for just a moment. Did you know that there are stars that the scientists tell us the distance they are, the number of light years they are away? And the number of light years they are away are farther than the age of the universe according to them. That is the billions of years, I forget, 13 billion years. Some of the stars are far enough away that the light couldn't be here yet. Yeah, my mind's blown. Now, don't let that be too much of a burden. All that means is they're wrong. Somewhere, somehow, they're wrong. But they just know. Indeed, you get to studying about the Big Bang. The Big Bang's not one theory. There's about 4 or 5 different theories that actually make up. This one says this, and this one says this. And every one of the 4 or 5 different theories about the Big Bang, you talk about settled science, it's not settled. All of those 4 or 5 theories, as they have been looked at, have flaws. And so there is no theory that works yet for the Big Bang. And so I put this in here because it says here, which stretcheth forth the heavens. Now, if you really want your mind blown, here's what I think has happened. At the beginning, when God made the heavens and the earth, and this is about 4 or 5 different times in the Old Testament, it says that God stretched out the heavens like a curtain. Now, what does that do to everything? It's kind of like how old was Adam when he was created? 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, but he appeared to be 18, 20 years old. The mountains that were created at that moment in time when God created them, how old did they appear to be? Well, according to scientist X, millions and millions of years. So, the way God does things, not the way we do things. And we'll never really fully know until we get to heaven about these things. Scientists should be more humble because they don't know. So, there's the burden of the Lord for Israel, saith the Lord, which stretcheth forth the heavens, and layeth the foundation of the earth, and formeth the spirit of man within him. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about, when they shall be in the siege both against Judah and against Jerusalem. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people. All that burden themselves with it shall be cut in pieces, though all the people of the earth be gathered together against it. So there's much there, but can we all agree that this is already happening right before us? Jerusalem and Israel are that cup of trembling and that burdensome stone. Like no time in history now. And as we've talked about before, the globalization of things has made it such that a little nation, 1/7 the size of Missouri, like Israel, can become a burden to the entire world, a couple of trembling to the entire world. And in particular, it's going to be to those people around them that are going to be gathered to cut them off. They're going to be cut in pieces. And then verse 9 and 10, and it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. Is Israel going to survive? Not based on any military or any other means that I know of, except for God. God's not going to let them drown. That I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem, and I will pour upon the house of David, upon the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the spirit of grace and of supplications. You should have this underlined in your Bible, verse 10. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. Okay, now this verse will twist and then blow up your brain. Look at it again. And they shall look upon me whom they have pierced. Who's speaking here? God. And it says, they shall look upon me whom they pierced, and then God again, and they shall mourn for him as one mourneth for his only son, and shall be in bitterness for him as one that is in bitterness for his firstborn. Jesus was the firstborn, right? The only one begotten of God that way. Now, others of us, as we have been born again, have been born into the family, and we have spiritually become sons of God. But Jesus uniquely is begotten. I mean, did any of you come out of a manger? Any of you come from a virgin? So Jesus is uniquely the only begotten Son of God. And this will just twist with your brain. God is speaking. It's Jesus. It's God. Well, there's no confusion for me there at all. When you think about the Trinity, this makes perfect sense. But if you don't factor in or believe in the Trinity, that verse doesn't make any sense. It's bad grammar. Right? But it's perfectly understandable. Pardon me. I don't know whether I had a cold last week and I'm just residually getting over it, or whether it was the flu and it's allergies, or whether they've invented something brand new and I got it. Yeah. Well, actually, the bird flu they're saying is going to be the next disease X. Are you going to fall for it? So, I want to remind you of this headline because this was a huge headline in Harbinger's Daily, but it says so much about where churches are wrong today and where we need to be right. Don't prepare, pastors, the bride to meet the Antichrist. There are churches and pastors no longer preaching a pre-tribulational rapture. They believe that we're going to go through the tribulation, or at least part of it. So if you think that's what's going to happen, you better get ready to meet the Antichrist and figure out what you're going to do with him. But not me. I'm going to prepare the bride, the church, to meet her bridegroom. That's what the Bible says that we're going to do. So there's a guy by the name of John Haller. I think I introduced him to you last week or a couple of weeks ago. He's with Fellowship Bible Chapel, and he does a prophecy update. He's a retired lawyer. And every week he starts off with this grid that he's developed. And this really goes to why we've been, and what we've been doing for the last 3.5 years. Prophecy, so being a retired lawyer, that would be ACLU would be a thing he would think of. And so this grid, ACLU, acceleration, convergence, logistics, and understanding. So the acceleration factor, that's well underway. That's why we're seeing happen in the last few years the changes in the world prophetically that would have taken decades before and did. I mean, the last real sign that you knew about was in 1948 when Israel became a nation. That was a ironclad guarantee that we were living in the end times. Not only the acceleration, but the convergence, and that's what we've been seeing come together. All of these different parts, we're going to talk about some of the different parts tonight that we've been talking about, and there's many more to be talked about. It's like they're coming into focus where they're tied together. They're not just the individual different parts. We begin to see how they are tied together. And then the logistics, we can begin to see how the devil is shaping up all of these different parts to be a part of the system that he's going to use. Things are being set up. And I've given you this warning before. I believe it with all my heart. There are some people who get so, well, Jesus is maybe coming today. Maybe today. Well, maybe today, but I could conceive very easily how it could be another 10 years. So get ready. Live on the edge. Live with your head up, looking for your redemption, for it draweth nigh. But just, does that make any sense, the balance of it? So acceleration, convergence, logistics, all of this is forming into a system that will be used. And then understanding. And that's kind of where we're going to go now. Daniel chapter 12. Daniel ends up in verse 8 being confused. And I heard, but I understood not. Then said I, O my Lord, what shall be the end of these things? Right? Now, we always want to jump to the end. We want to see how it's going to end up. And he said, Go thy way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified and made white and tried, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand, but the wise shall understand. I don't know whether you realize the power mentally and spiritually it does for you to know the things that we've been talking about in preparation for whatever days are before us. We're not confused or thrown off by them. The rest of the world is saying, where did that come from? We're saying, oh yeah, I knew it. And there's power in that. Any thoughts before we move on? I can edit them out. So, the wise will understand. I want to give you just 3 things that the Bible indicates we're supposed to discern. Number 1, obviously, is truth. Paul says in 1 Corinthians 2:14, But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of God, for they are foolishness unto him. Neither can he know them, because they are spiritually discerned. There are things we understand as children of God, as students of the Bible. We understand things that are truth, and there's no bigger issue than truth. Secondly, discern the times. So it's closed in Daniel's time. Close it up. You're not going to understand, don't. Toward the end, there's more than one scripture that indicates that it's now, and it has been since Jesus left. We are able now to understand some of the prophecies that before Christ weren't. Something is coming into focus. We knew that was there, but now we see not only that, but how now, at these end of the end time, we understand how that not only is there, but how it's connected to this and this and this. Yes, we have understanding of our times. And so truth is spiritually discerned. And the times, Jesus chided the religious leaders. Because you can tell what the weather's going to be, but you don't understand the times. And where's that passage? The children of Issachar were men who had understanding of their times and knew what to do. I have upset some people by telling you that the way things are shaping up in the world, all of these different parts and the visualization that's shaping up, we now understand the Antichrist system as it comes into focus. Given what that is and what the Antichrist is going to do, what we know prophetically what he's going to do during the tribulation, they cannot let Donald Trump be president. I don't know what it will take, and maybe they don't know what it will take. Maybe trials in the court. If nothing else works, if they can't dial the election the way they want it to be, and I'm not being metaphoric about that, I'm being realistic, they're going to crank up the votes they want, right? If somehow they can't get that done, you mark my word, come back to me after the election and tell me, okay, Doug, you were wrong. They're going to have to kill him. I believe, this is just me, I believe based on my understanding of the times and prophecy, Donald Trump cannot be president. They'll have to kill him. They can't do that without civil war. Are we all agreed with that? If they assassinate him, there'll be civil war. But how about if you take him out at the same moment somebody takes out Biden?
Take them both out.
And let's blame it on conservative Christians. Now, nobody knows exactly what to do. It's genius. I should probably edit that out because if they get a hold of it, they might think of it. So somebody come back to me after the election. I'll be willing to admit that Dan was wrong for suggesting this several weeks ago to me. And so taking the both of them out would kind of just put everything on hold. Well, and now everybody's agreed, including me, we've got to have martial law. We got to stop. Because of the globalization, you can't have an anti-globalist as president. They can't. Now, I'm going to work and do everything I can to get him elected. I'll vote for him, hold my nose and vote for him. But that's not the fix. Not with what we see shaping up all over. This part and this part are connected. Now, I'll grant you that what I just told you is a bit much for some people to take. It's a little hard for me to take. But I've never been anybody to shy away from the truth and the possibilities. So, discerning the times is important. Jesus chided those religious leaders because they couldn't do it. You and I can do it. We have understanding. I don't know whether you have any point of reference to understand how different your understanding of things is compared to person X, even person X in the church out there. I mean, you got lame-brained preachers that are preaching the goofiest things. Feathers of angels coming down. We talked about that last week. What's dumber? The guys preaching that or the people that buy it? Yeah, they both deserve each other. So give yourself some credit. You have an understanding of the times. And then third, the discernment of the Spirit. 1 Corinthians 12:10, we find that it is actually a spiritual gift. I believe we all have the Holy Spirit, so we can all discern the truth. But it is actually, there are some people who have a spiritual gift for that. So I introduced a few of these, and I want to go through and talk about some of these and introduce some more. The acceleration factor gives us a time frame until 3 years ago or so. All I can tell you is, maybe in the next 20 or 30 years. But now we're probably all pretty well agreed. It really can't go many more years. So, some that we've talked about quite a bit: the rise of the one world system, those three unholy trinity: government, religion, and economic system. You know that we're the first generation since COVID who can understand how 666 is an easy thing to do. You know, a few years ago, I don't know, maybe 3, 4 years ago, Amazon introduced, they built their facility, shopping place, where you could go in and you could scan your palm print. And as you walk through the store, the cameras see what you pick up. And it is coded in such a way that they know when it leaves the store, so there's no cheating about that. And as you leave the store, your credit card on record is charged that amount. Well, no, I mean, that's a real thing. That's not pie in the sky. That's already happening. Turns out people aren't all that comfortable with it yet, which I believe that it was a test thing for them and the devil too. We still have places in the world where cell phones are not ubiquitous. And so getting a mark on everybody, there's still, that could happen very quickly. In order for you to buy or sell, because of disease X now, or Y or Z, you've got to take the prick and you're going to have a mark. So we know, for your protection, so we know that you've been jabbed. Right? We've got the technology already. It's just a matter of being pushed in the tragedy, in the crisis that will cause it to go ahead and become the mark of the beast. I mean, we're right there. That globalization is huge. Anti-Semitism and all that could never have occurred globally the way that it could now. And so artificial intelligence, I'm going to show you a little video in just a moment. Artificial intelligence is so good at some things, and yet, when I type on my phone, THE, it will autocomplete 4 or 5 other things besides THE, there, they, them, almost anything. My phone's so stupid, it types every THE thing except for THE. I don't even know how you could be that wrong that often. And artificial intelligence is supposed to be such that it learns how I talk. Have you ever had autocomplete type in a phrase that you didn't even know that was a word? Have you ever had that happen? I've had that happen. So it doesn't know that Doug Bradley's never going to use that word. And if he does, he'll do it manually. So in many ways, this may be a function. Apple is different from the Android world in that Apple keeps everything on device for security purposes. I think that causes them to lag behind because Android, they'll do everything in the cloud, and who knows what's going on up there. Anyway, I needed to say that. But artificial intelligence is really good at doing a lot of things, crunching astronomical numbers and coming out with patterns from that would have taken human beings decades to do, or would never. And robotics. So this is going to go back and forth between movies, fiction, this is where it's going to start out, and what's real about drones. See if you can tell the difference.
Nothing says futuristic dystopia quite like a swarm of killer drones making decisions over matters of human life and death. But true drone swarms, where multiple platforms communicate and collaborate to achieve a shared objective, have already been used to attack. Welcome to Technality. Today, we're exploring drone swarms and the future of modern warfare. Several countries are developing robotic and autonomous systems for military purposes, but one already has real operational experience. Israel uses a system called Legion X, described as an autonomous networked combat solution. An operation involving a swarm of drones can be overseen by a single soldier, directly from the Legion X tablet interface. A range of drones in the air and on the ground can communicate with each other and share information in real time. Working via remote control or fully autonomously, the system can adapt to different environments and even enter buildings to map their insides as it advances. In 2021, the Israeli military reportedly used this technology to attack Hamas militants in the Gaza Strip. The company behind Legion X claims its system can differentiate between civilians and combatants, and that it requests human authorization before engaging targets. But in places like Gaza, where millions of civilians live within a small and densely packed geographic area, the prospect of mistaking them for enemy targets is dangerously high. The American military is working on its own drone swarm technology that would rival any of Hollywood's nightmare scenarios. DARPA, the US Defense Department's research and development team, has been working on drone swarms for years and has already conducted multiple field experiments. But new documents recently revealed show the US Navy is closer than ever with its aptly named Project Super Drone. Flocks of AI-driven autonomous drones are being designed to overwhelm enemy air defenses and conduct kamikaze-style airstrikes. They could be launched from larger aircraft or submarines and could conduct all kinds of different missions. In the very near future, Navy drone swarms might be used as a first line of attack, gaining advantage on the battlefield long before putting human assets in harm's way. And you can bet that rivals like China and Russia aren't wasting any time developing similar capabilities of their own. A future where militaries around the world have access to devastating drone swarms is less a question of if, but when. Unlike other aspects of war, however, there are no legally binding rules to regulate lethal autonomous weapons. Can world powers agree to ban so-called slaughter bots designed to kill humans? Can the international community agree that all systems always be subject to human oversight and control? And can the world keep weapons like these out of the hands of terror groups and other non-state actors? Organizations like the International Committee of the Red Cross are lobbying governments to prevent these terrifying scenarios from ever taking place, so far to no avail. One thing is certain, the rapid advancement of drone swarm technology is transforming the urban battlefield, with major implications. Will humanity pull together before it's too late?
They're going to whine about how we should do something about that. There was a Star Trek original series that came on where these two planets nearby each other had been warring. Remember that? They would blow each other up with rockets and missiles. And then somebody had an idea. Instead of killing each other that way, why don't we just put all this in the computer, and when your number comes up, you'll step in and you will be neutralized. And this will all be done computer, and nobody dies until it's time for them to die. Nobody gets blown up. And when Captain Kirk and all discovered, they thought, are you guys nuts? And they put a stop to it. So we're at the point where we may have drones being the first ones killed, if that's the word to use, instead of soldiers. You know, a lot of drone has been going on in Ukraine, a lot of it. So here's John Haller, and he does a little, I tried to find this video that he had, but I couldn't find it.
Then you have technology. This is a South Korea, a drone show. Now, it's pretty, it's cute, it's interesting. Ooh, ah, look what they're able to do with drones. But understand that if you can do that for a show, you can do that for a military purpose. That's what you ought to apply. In fact, this is Joe Allen tweeted this the other day about, reminds me of locusts with faces like men and tails like scorpions.
我中国人民解放军有足够的力量
Those are drones.
扫除一切的。
And so when you read a passage like Ezekiel 38:39, where it says, I come up like a cloud against the land, is this what Ezekiel saw? Could be.
You can go see some YouTube videos, and I encourage you. It's very fascinating what they're able to do. Artificial intelligence and robotics. These drones, hundreds of them, are able to make their way through a dense forest, avoiding all the obstacles, moving and doing what they're intending to do. No human being would ever be able to do that. That capability is now far beyond any human capability. Okay, so the robotics and artificial intelligence, we haven't even scratched the surface of what that's going to become. We talked about last week the dead bots. You have a loved one who passes away. Now, with artificial intelligence, you can give them some recordings, photos of your deceased loved one, and they can give you a virtual rendition of that person. You can have a conversation with them, a deep fake, if you will. In addition to that, if you've got the money to buy a robot like some of the robots they've got now, you could make them look like your deceased loved one. They would walk around the house and have a conversation with you and sound like them, and even have thought patterns like they would have. So now we've introduced a creep factor that is beyond anything the world's ever seen. Okay, so transhumanism, we're going to talk about that in the future. Disease and food. They're going to control the world through health. Digital currency. Oh man, this makes me mad every time I think about it. No matter what little dab you've got in your bank account, and go ahead and get all that gold you want to and see how good it'll do you. Won't do you a bit of good. They're going to, one of these days, flip that switch, and we're not very far from it. They've already begun to put the things in place. You have what they say you'll have, and you'll get to spend it on what they say you can spend it on. Baseball game? Nope. You bought too much gas this week. Really. They will control through those kind of things. And the apostasy of the church, really angel feather wings, feathers falling down. Wow. Some things that we're going to look at coming up. This mind manipulation is going on and you don't even know it. And I didn't even know it. I've only recently come privy of it. That they actually have Hollywood making movies to prepare our thinking for how they want us to think in the days to come. Civil War. Obama's been out making a movie about Civil War. And in that, they're preparing people for how they want them to think when that Civil War happened. The marketing is very powerful. The subliminal messages, that's been a thing for a long time. They used to do things at the drive-in movies. Pizza, pizza, pizza. Remember that? What did that make you want to do? Eat a hamburger?
Pizza.
Yeah. So the mind manipulation, we're going to talk a lot about that because they're really using it big time. My point in that is simply for a fourth grader, for that to get into their brain and then become passionate at that moment. What's a fourth grader know? But that's going to be baked in their brain. And unless a miracle of being born again later on and the truth gets them, that's how they're going to be the rest of their lives. The problem with the elected officials that we've got, so Fannie got reelected, 82% nominated. Right, did you see that down in Georgia? Fannie got 82% of the vote for the nomination. The people we elect is not the problem. It is the fools that vote for them. And when the elections are over, they're all right there among us. And they found that in Gaza in grade school, how to and why you should kill every Jew and that kind of thing. So you get a kid that young, aside from a miracle, now a miracle can happen and has, but aside from that, they'll go the rest of their life with that burned in their brain. Really, it's awful that the devil uses mind manipulation like that. I was talking to my chiropractor today, asking if he was a scout. Yeah, he was a scout, and I knew he was. And he went to the jamboree they had here in Kansas City back in the day when it became family scouting, and they introduced that. And he and friends sat on the front row so they could be first to protest, and indeed did, on which they were escorted out immediately. And before they left, they had cameras set up, and they made the sheriff tell them why they were being escorted out. They knew why, but they wanted it on the camera. Didn't make any difference, did it? Truth is going to be suppressed. You go ahead and shout and yell all you want to. Truth is going to be suppressed. They're going to put a bullet in his head and they're going to shut you up. What we need to be telling, that we should never let them stop us from telling, is that Jesus is the way.